I mentioned Hollywood. The story goes that this handwritten piece of paper was pinned to the wall of Walt Disney's office in 1957. And it's an example of how building a loyal audience can really result in building a giant business empire. So you'll see that in the center is Disney's theatrical business, right? That's its movies, that's its films. In the 1950s, that would have been Dumbo, Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, etc. And because of that, on the back of their theatrical business, Disney was able to get into music, television, merchandise and licensing, publications, rides and theme parks, comic strips, etc. So in other words, because they built a loyal audience at the center, meaning that you had an audience whereby anything Disney, these guys would go and watch, right? Because they knew what to expect from Disney. Never heard of Sleeping Beauty, don't know what that is, but if they're the same guys who made Snow White and Dumbo, I'm in, and I'm bringing my whole family with me. That then allows them to create all kinds of additional monetization models around that audience that they've built. And because this audience is loyal, they will pretty much be up for anything you have to offer. And if you consider that today Disney now owns Star Wars and Marvel, this is pretty much the same strategy even until today, right? Now try to think of that in a brand context. If you were that brand and you had a loyal audience at the center and all kinds of monetization models that then come out as a result. And here are some examples of brands that have succeeded in doing that. Succeeded in pretty much exceeding what the brand started out being. Red Bull, for example, has transcended being a producer of disgusting syrupy energy drinks, and they're now a sports brand, right? Specifically, they're an extreme sports brand, again with a loyal audience. Michelin Tire Company is now the leading authority in restaurants in the world. Now, how the hell did that happen? Now, I don't know if you know the story, but the reason why Michelin started making restaurant guides is because they were trying to figure out how do we get consumers to use up their rubber tires faster? Well, the only way for them to do that is to have them drive more. Well, if they're not driving more, why not? And they realized it's because if somebody drives from one city to another, they get to the other city and like, I don't know where to eat, I don't know which hotel to stay at, I don't know where to go. And then they realized that if you gave away these guides in every city they went to, and they understood that no matter which city I drive to, there'll be a Michelin guide there for me, then all of a sudden, people are traveling the country by road, right? And that's kind of how Michelin became the kind of brand that they are today. Let's look at a slightly more modest example. This is, if you're Filipino, you're probably familiar with the brand Del Monte Kitchenomics. So Del Monte is a food brand in the Philippines that makes a bunch of stuff, but in particular, tomato-based products, tomato sauces, tomato paste, etc. And I became aware of this when I was working for McCann Erickson in the 1990s. Essentially content marketing before anybody had even coined the phrase content marketing. They do recipes. They put recipes, printed it on the back of the labels of their cans, and so anybody who bought a can had this free recipe that came with it. Every year, these recipes would then get compiled into a book, hundreds and hundreds of recipes, hundreds of pages, and they would sell this cookbook, and every year the cookbooks would sell out at bookstores. So imagine that. People are paying for your marketing. Consumers are paying you for marketing to them. And here's why you should care ultimately, right? I mean, I know that in marketing we are very focused on return on investment, especially short-term return on investment. But I think this is the way you need to look at the audiences that you build around your content. And that is, don't just think of them as an audience or even a target consumer, like the people who ultimately buy. You need to think of it as your pre-customer database. This is a phrase coined by two guys named Robert Rose and Joe Polizzi, who wrote a book called Killing Marketing. And that's basically what they said, right? Is that this audience, they may not be buying from you today, they may not be buying from you tomorrow or even next week, but because they have built a loyalty around your brand, they are predisposed to buy your product somewhere down the road. So you've created this loyalty, and therefore they're now more open to whatever kind of monetization ideas you might have down the road. Again, pre-customer database.